Pastor Mathebula made a post on Facebook pertaining the squatter camps of Tembisa, I think. He's very passionate about Tembisa. So he made a post about the community being squashed together in one area. And he estimated that the number of people in that area is almost 1 million. And then he highlights that there is a farmland or a land that is a little bit, that looks vacant, or it looks like it's not occupied. And then he stated, isn't it heartbreaking? So it reminded me of the Julius post. And interesting enough, this post comes after the Julius post, right? Just as a highlight. Julius made a comment saying, if black people stay in one area and there is a vacant area, why don't they gather together and go and take that area? Personally, I stand against such comments. There is right of property, and that must be understood. Now, the bishop's comment here, I'm not going to take it from that side of thing, because I don't think that's what he's implying. I think he's applying it towards the accountability towards leaders, the ANC and the mandems over them, to say, why don't they provide places for people, so that people can have breathing room. Now, I wanted to make a comment about that, but I want it to be very clear. I agree with Pastor Mathebula on a lot of things. For example, when he went to a discussion with Tibotaj.
But if you are a servant to the people, which is something that breaks my heart, we don't have it in our nation, that thing. Leaders are there for themselves, not for the people. And that breaks my heart.
Yeah.
I even said yesterday, corruption is equivalent
to witchcraft. Hey! That was a shocker for me. And we know why Muruti went with that. The biggest scandal, Tembisa Hospital, where at some point my name was mentioned in that because of the picture I took with the president. He went straight there. It's right at their backyard.
The issue why I said corruption is equivalent to witchcraft, because the moment you steal the money, there are children who were supposed to have a better life through that money. Better schools were supposed to be built, better hospitals, infrastructure, sports resources, and are not there because we're not with the imali we won. And you call that leadership? That is not leadership. And don't get me wrong, this is not about into politics only, but even in the church, you've got people who have been collecting money for the building fund for over 25 years.
Jesus.
And what has happened with that money? What about the people that we are leading? It cannot be. We need to change that narrative and begin to think about our people and the future generation.
So I completely agree with that. I've made an entire episode on the channel, if you check, where I mentioned government looting is as a result of a demonic agenda. And there is a cult behind that agenda. But on this point, I differ with him on the subject matter of why don't they give them more land so that people can spread out, not squash them together. Now, let's think about city planning, right? Why city planning? Because city planning will help you understand why it is a huge inconvenience to do things in that manner. It's the reality show we do daily Christian commentary videos. Other episodes are a bit down in the pinned comments. You're looking for an English teacher? Please do email this particular email that appears right above. They will help either a child and all the way up to adults who are looking for help, even secondary schools, for those that are in struggle. You do a trial lesson, they see where you're at, and then they can see how they can patch up your sessions to help you in that area. If you look at city planning, right, the goals, first of all, the goals of city planning. I'm not talking about whether they should do it, not do it. That's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is a specific thing. If you look at the cost of city planning, you'll understand why it is huge. It's a huge inconvenience to spend money on what he is suggesting. Why not them have more land? Because you're only going to create more problems on a broader scale. You're going to create bigger problems. Bigger problems that will not just affect government spending, bigger problems that will affect the individuals themselves. Let's go into that. If you look at the area that he suggests, it's about 1 million people. Look at how will the city look if you were to take this low cost living and spread it across a million people, with everybody having a backyard and whatever they want to do. It will be, Joburg by itself will go into Pretoria. If you were to give everybody enough space, room, so that they are not squashed, they are comfortable, no problem. It will move Joburg straight into, as a matter of fact, all the way to Garanko. Yeah, because you're talking about 1 million people, right? If you look at the people that live in Soshanguve, Atteridgeville, Pretoria, the informal settlement in Pretoria, Joburg will stretch all the way to Naibong. Yeah, because if we were to do what you're suggesting, let's just give everybody a little bit of space. Let's give them here. Let's not let everybody be squashed up. No problem. Why would that not work? That individual who's moved, how far should they be moved? Say, for example, a person who is in Tembisa right now would be moved all the way to Pretoria. That person might have a job in Joburg. What is the living condition for them to come to work? How much will it cost them? Because remember, you've given all this land to living spaces or living quarters. For people here, they're going to be staying here. This one will be staying here. No problem. The more land you give, the more the stretch for them to be able to get to basic amenities, right? You create more problem. So it looks like a solution to say, hey, why don't we give people more land? You give more people land, you give 1 million people land, as you are saying, occupy the empty spaces. Yeah, I'll get to that empty spaces issue in a minute. You will stretch the distances for them to get to basics. You will create a bigger problem than you have. Because now, where a person could have walked to, that's why whenever you're looking for a place, they'll tell you, you are 5 minutes away from a school. You are a 5 minutes, 15 minutes walk to a mall. You are this far, you are 2 streets away. When you are looking for a place to stay, you will see that they put that. You are 2 blocks away from public transport. They tell you those things. Why? Because it becomes very important to where you are. Guys, do you get what I'm saying? What we are asking is going to become a bigger problem. Those people will become far and far away from places where they could go and look for jobs. Imagine now a person who was right here in Soweto. Now, because they've been stretched out, right? We give them land, we gave all that kind of stuff, no problem. They've been stretched out to live as far as Free State. You are not in Joburg at that moment. It becomes an inconvenience to that person. With transportation alone, gotta think about that. Now, it also becomes too big of a cost to bring service delivery. We are advocating for service delivery, right? No problem. While we are advocating for service delivery, it becomes more costly to bring service delivery to people the further apart they stay. That is why things move very slow in the village. They move very slow because a lot of land is occupied by like 5 people. A lot of space and a lot of... So it becomes more costly for them to put pipes for water to be in every single household. It becomes more expensive for them to have drainage systems. It becomes more costly. As a matter of fact, some places they don't even do it. It becomes more costly for them installing things like tar roads because the road does not contribute to the economy of the country. If you look at it, places which get tar roads and all those things are places which contribute somehow. Maybe they have a mining whole thing and what. They have some type of contribution. So in order to fast track the transportation in that area, they'll do that. It must make financial sense for them to invest in those type of things. Makes sense. Villages are an example of why giving people more room does not work. In the villages, for you to get to a place where the public transport goes to, you must walk. You'll walk like 30 minutes. You'll be sweating at that time. Hot sun. You'll be sweating. If you look at the new designs of new cities and so forth, right, you will notice that they put what you would know as hubs, right? They design them with the idea of hubs to say this is the business district, this is the living space, what. Why? Because different areas planning require different things. Businesses require a lot of electrical consumption. So the type of wiring that Eskom must do to that particular district and whatnot and all of that stuff, it's a little bit more on the cost side, right? And so as a result, it becomes very crucial. It becomes so crucial that we understand some of the things we are asking for, they do not make financial sense in those spaces. Should they plant people and need to redesign the city for it to be accessible business, a business to be an accessible business area? Now what must happen? Must they come and move those people who've planted their whole life there, build houses or whatever it is that they have done in that area? You create cost that is not friendly. And so when we design the city, or when they design the city, it is much more easier having to deal with one farmer who owns in thingy than to have to deal with demolition plans. You see what is happening in areas like Zimbabwe and Nigeria because these people don't plan well. It's a huge bad effect to things like that. They don't plan well in these areas. They do not plan very well. So what happens is that they'll go there, demolish houses, they'll go there and do this because now they realize later that in the city's plan, hey, we want to designate this to a different thing, we want to designate this thing to a different thing. It becomes very important to understand why. Sometimes it's not convenient. We might want that, but it's not convenient. And then on the other side, what are we saying about ownership? This is the last point that I'll raise. What are we saying about ownership and what do we believe about ownership? When we are saying, why are people squashed like this and then there's a farm? What are we saying exactly? What are we implying about ownership? Do we not have a concept of ownership? What are we saying? Some of these things just don't work, guys. They don't work because they just don't work. And I know people want these things, but there's free land. Yeah, some of those free land, you want to put it for we're a developing nation. We're not a squatter camp country. Do you understand what I'm saying, guys? We're not a squatter camp country. We want to advocate for better working conditions. We want to advocate for better working environment. We want to advocate for businesses, for investment, and all of those things. Those are the things that are going to bring development, elevate the people's lives. The people themselves can go into better living spaces, and those free locations which we are looking at, developers will buy those particular areas, develop better in working in housing environments, and we go into a better. We are not a slum. We do not want to become a slum country. It does not work. It doesn't work. It's not gonna work. You do not want to give 20,000 hectares just to slums. No, you don't want to do that. If you are developing, you want to portion this thing, have people be at close proximity. You don't want to give them so much land. And you've seen what happens in the squatters. What ends up happening is that people start building entire houses and whatnots. Houses that have no permits, nothing. They just end up just stretch something at the backyard. It becomes a whole problem. So some of these things, they don't work because they just don't work. Even if, there is no way to make this idea work. Do you get what I mean? There is no way you'll make it work where you give people more money, who are still dependent. Some of them are probably still dependent to 350s, right? So you don't want to give. You do not want a society that is completely dependent on the government. You don't want a state like that. It causes a collapse, right? You want to build an area of motivation. I know a lot of people tend to look at things like rich and the poor, they rub shoulders. The rich are just next door. Yeah, let them be motivated to get there. I myself, who's speaking here, I don't qualify for any of those jobs. But we work towards. Don't work backwards. We work forward. We work towards being able to afford, being able to be. Developed country must not be a slum. Because before you know it, what ends up happening, and a lot of, and if you walk into these areas and whatnot, of course, I'm not saying this about all areas. There are casies and thingy that are very, very respected. You walk into the streets like in Soweto, your Dobsonvilles and whatnot, you find very decent places, like quiet and all that entire concept. In a lot of this area is very backwards. Very backwards. The trenches are backwards. You get into the house, boo, 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 playing loud music. Ever since I left the CBD, I haven't had loud music. I haven't had loud music in 6 months. I haven't had loud music in 6 months because you're living with people that are doing well in life. They're building families. There's no time for loud music. No single boys here. It's families, retired people and whatnot. It motivates. You just look out the window, you are motivated. Yeah, we must work now. We don't want the dependency that tends to be built within this low income area. So I just wanted to put that out. Yes, we might have these ideas, but we must be very careful because some of these ideas, they do not speak to what we are trying to go towards. I'll give you an example, okay? Give you a random example. If you go to areas like your Soshanguve, your Atteridgeville and these places, the roads have a lot of speed humps. You know why? Because those places, they become hazards because people just drive anyhow. Speed humps as you enter a new road, speed humps as you exit. Because they have to create safety. Okay? Because the police are not going to be there roaming all over the place. So as a result, to create safe zones for people not to get bumped, they will be a lot of speed humps. Now, why am I addressing the speed humps? Because the speed humps create another traffic. Yeah. To get out of that area, even if you will see it adds another 15-20 minutes. Now, we say people must have more space, more room, no problem. Imagine having that for the next 3 hours. When will you get to work? When will you get to work? When? It's very important having access to Corset. Like right now, I don't live in a thing. I don't have a car. To get to a place where there's shops, It's a hassle. I have to do a walk. It's a walk. Why? Because I'm completely cut from where the cars pass. So I have to do a walk, like 30 minutes walk. Yeah, that's how isolated. It becomes a problem over long term, these particular things. Okay? Accessibility. When I was in Joburg CBD, I walk out, I have a place I can buy fruits, do what, and I can jump a street, I'm at a mall. Cross the other street, I'm at a place where I can buy food. Cross the other street, I'm at my bank thingy. Cross the street, transport. It's everything was like right in front of me. There's a gym here, there's this. You have access to all these things. And so I think it's important we understand what accessibility does. Okay, it makes life a little bit more convenient. And if we were to give what we are saying, give them more space, give them more room, you make no room for development. Okay? Some of these squatter camps, they were planted so that people can just be there temporarily. Some of them are permanent. 20 years later, they are still there. So, yeah, tell me your thoughts down in the comment section. I just thought there's a bigger conversation we're having, and the bigger conversation is where it's not possible. It is absolutely not possible for that to happen. But y'all tell me your thoughts down in the comment section, and I'll see you on the other episodes. Other episodes down today down in the pinned comments.